Hey, what's up, everybody? John Highley here with the Kingdom Power Life. I want to talk to you guys today about really, ultimately, what we're looking at today is how success works. How literally God will push us to the point to where we have to do everything that we can possibly do in the natural. And when we do that, we are actually submitting to the Lord. We are surrendering to the Lord before He steps in and puts His supernatural on it. So we're going to talk today about why that works. What is it? And we're going to go deep into, not only why it works, but just how that's just been the theme for individuals throughout history to actually get their greatest accomplishments are typically right after their biggest failures. So that being said, before we move any further, ask you guys if y'all have not liked, if you have not subscribed, if you have not hit the notification bell, please do so now. That helps us get out there into the YouTube algorithm, and we get in front of more people, and we're out here spreading the word of God. So I appreciate you guys to help us do so. So that being said, my friends, jumping into this today, there are so many examples in the Bible of where literally His people were pushed to the brink of belief, of faith, where He pushes us to believe in the unseen. And if you look at stories, and I don't have time to really go in depth into the stories, but if you look at individuals like Henry Ford, if you look at individuals like Elon Musk, you look at individuals like Rockefeller. If you look at a lot of these folks, you will see that they literally pushed so hard to the brink of putting everything that they had. I mean, they created a plan and they put everything that they had in this whatever particular endeavor that they were going towards, or whatever it is that they were trying to accomplish. And at that very moment, it was that very moment when literally they were both of their feet were across the line of failure where most people would have given up. I mean, you will see this time and time again when it comes to the individuals who have really changed the world, individuals who have just done huge accomplishments. If you look back at Moses, if you look back at how many times Moses was on the brink of failure, and how many times that Moses didn't believe in himself and had to be assured that when he got to the point where he was speaking to the Pharaoh, that God would come in and put His supernatural on Moses' natural, right? So there's many times that we're called to do this, and ultimately I believe there's a huge lesson to be learned here, because it takes a lot of faith to go out into the world and just whatever it is, whatever desire it is that God has on your heart. I don't care if that's starting a business, if that's getting a particular relationship, if you're looking for somebody who you want to marry, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever that looks like. If you are going out and trying to get a particular type of job, if you are looking to break into a specific type of career, acting, being a musician, like all of this at the highest level. If you look at any individual who climbed that ladder, they did it by going like all in. If they did it right, if they did it God's way. I know there's two ways to do things. There's the manipulation, scheming, behind the dumpster, transactions, deals, stuff like that. There is that way, but that, the abundance of the Lord comes with no sorrow, it says in Proverbs, and it's the truth. So when you do things God's way, you're going to take the desire that is in your heart, and you are going to push so hard. You are going to put so much energy out into the environment that you are declaring your faith, and you're going to get to the point where you cannot do no more, that there is nothing else that you can do. And when you get to that point, you'll finally be at the brink where it's in God's hands. Like, you will surely know that when this thing happens, and it will happen every single time, and if it doesn't happen, you're going to know it's not for you. You're going to know deep down in your heart, because you did everything. And God's going to put His supernatural on your natural at that point and make miracles start to happen. It's a compound effect. It's like we spend 95% of our effort is going to go into building this thing. And that last 5%, we've got to push it all the way through. And in the success world that I am in, they talk about that being the dip before success, meaning that, you're always going to go down into this dip, into this barren land. Usually if you listen to Alex Hormozy, he really has a good analogy where, you start out here and you've got this uninformed optimism, meaning you're optimistic because you're uninformed of what you actually got to do to make it work. A lot of people do that. They get in on, new opportunities, things like that, and they got this uninformed optimism, and they just think that, they landed on this thing, it's just going to start happening, there's just going to be all these amazing things happening, right? Well, then they get over that hump, and they start to get down the hump, and on the other side of that hump, you've actually got informed pessimism. So now you've been informed that there's particular things you got to do. It's going to take work, and now you're pessimistic about it because you're like, man, this sucks because I had uninformed optimism over here, which was awesome. It felt really good. But now I'm being informed that I've got things to do. I've got things to happen. So after uninformed pessimism, you go down into like a land of desperation where you've got to give it all. I mean, if you really want to take it to this, I've seen people kind of steady along with things, create little side hustles, little deals, little things like that. Fine. If that's what you want, that's fine. But if you want something to go to the next level, you've got to go through almost like this valley of death where you empty yourself of yourself. And at that point, when you empty yourself of yourself, God can actually fill you with his light. And when God fills you with his light, you're going to know it. Things are going to happen. But it's literally going to be the brink of where most people would give up. It's going to be 2 steps past failure. So you're going to have like where you feel like you're a failure right here, and it's going to go 2 steps back past that. It's going to break your ego. It's going to break all of the things that can potentially harm you in the future. And then all of a sudden you'll get to this end and something will happen. I don't know where it comes from. Well, I know where it comes from, but you don't know where it's going to come from. It's going to come from even maybe something you did at the very beginning, some little insignificant act, or it's just going to come out of nowhere. Somebody heard of you or word of mouth. I've seen this happen. We actually, back in the day when I had one of my biggest years where we, I'm not going to tell you how much money we made, but I'll just tell you it's in the millions and millions and millions, right? And I went from being like which is pretty good back then, like a $300,000 a year guy, and I was doing a particular automotive service, and then all of a sudden we just went like way up into the millions, right? And long story short, we got all of this work that just came barreled in, and I remember that I was just at my breaking point. Like I couldn't take it all. We had just work coming in from everywhere. We had to hire people. We ended up at one time we had about 30 technicians that we were interchanging out that was working for us at that time. And, people were leaving, people were going, people were breaking stuff, individuals weren't doing their job right, individuals were leaving in the middle of particular car repairs. So like all of this chaos was just going, and this lasted for like 30 days. So it ramped up, and I had like 30 days of this crazy chaos that was happening outside of me. And I almost got to the point where I just wanted to I wanted to get away from all of it. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go be a one-man band again, and I'm going to go do my own thing, and I'm not dealing with this anymore. I was much happier before all of this chaos started happening in my life. Here I am working from way early in the morning till way late at night, and I'm having to deal with all these people, and then as soon as people come, they end up leaving me, and like all of this stuff was happening. It was incredibly chaotic. And all of a sudden, I just remember there's a breaking point where I kind of looked around, and I remember it just being this beautiful sunny day, and it's back, I live in Texas now, and it's back when I lived in Ohio, and I remember the sun just like peering through the trees and hitting me on the side of the face, and I just felt like this overcoming sense of certainty come over me, and it's like I broke past it, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm doing this. I said, it doesn't matter what happens. I don't care how bad I look. I don't care if this ruins my reputation, like whatever it is, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to make it happen. I'm never going to give up. And then right at that moment, I felt what I describe as like the hand of God touching me. And it was kind of like if you got to pee really bad, and then all of a sudden you pee and you're like, oh, I just felt an overwhelming sense of just gratitude come over my body. And from that moment on, it was so strange. I got in my truck. I went to drive away. I literally ended up getting a phone call. And it was this very insignificant situation where I hired a manager, and this manager met these dudes, and these dudes were looking for all this work. And then I ended up meeting with them later that day, and they ended up coming in and being my best team. They stayed with me to the very end of this. It was a catastrophic event, so that we were handling at that time. You know, a big storm that came through with tornadoes and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, I got all my technicians are lined up for the rest of the storm, but it was right after that. It was like literally that day, in that moment, that it happened, and I knew that was sent to me from God. And your situation is going to be just like this. Many of your situations are going to be just like this. You're going to be on the edge. You're going to want to give up. You're going to think that you don't have any more in you. And right then you learned your spiritual lesson when you finally decide that you are not going to give up and that everything is going to be all right. And you almost got to settle into the fact that, hey, God is on my side. I don't care what this looks like. I don't care what happens here. I don't care. This is, I'm letting go of all of my worries, and I'm turning this over to God, and I'm putting this into God's hand, and I'm giving this over to you. And then right at that moment, it will happen. Now, there's a strange thing where you can't rightfully from the bottom of your heart ask God to step in and do a miracle unless you know that you've done everything that you can possibly do. I mean, you can ask him, but it ain't going to come through right. It's just, there's just something about it where you've got to be like hit down. You've got to be almost beat down to your last breath, and then you've got to decide that you're going to do it no matter what. And then right at that point, you're gonna find your flip, and you're gonna see things move in your favor. I'm not the only one that's telling you this. I've read many books, and this is it's like a secret. And I mean, you'll see it, with Moses at the Red Sea, when the Israelites were neck deep into the water before the sea finally parted. They had to have faith. They had to have belief. You're going to find this in many places in the Bible, but God's got to literally crucify your flesh and get you out of yourself before he can step in and do his supernatural. And the beautiful thing about that is that you'll remember it. And the beautiful thing about remembering it is that forms certainty. And in some of the previous videos, I was talking about how faith is the best, right? It's the belief in the unseen. But certainty is the belief, not only the belief in the unseen, but also the certain knowledge that you know that it's going to happen. It happened before, it's going to happen again. So when you begin to have faith and the belief in the unseen, and then God comes through and does what God does and puts his hand on you and puts a miracle in your life, you should have certainty after that, because you've seen it happen once, and now you should know that it's going to happen again. So then you can weave faith with certainty, and you can walk to the point to where now, as many as businesses that we've opened, the people, like, I honestly, guys, like, I know the individuals. We launched a lot of businesses. Probably this last year, we probably launched somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 20 different businesses over the last year. Not my personal businesses, but we've helped individuals launch their personal businesses through our marketing agency. And to be honest with you, within 2 to 3 weeks, I know the ones that are going to succeed and the ones that probably won't. And the individuals that stay in that uninformed optimism phase, that they just think that everything's going to magically come to them, are the ones that always fail. I mean, they don't do anything. So if you don't do anything, you don't put any energy out in the world. I mean, James said it best. He said, faith without works is dead. So what does that mean? If you have faith in this business growing, you can't just sit there and have faith in it. You've got to go out and put works behind it or to actually make that faith come alive. It's the gift that we'd been given. There's no other time or no other realm per se that there's time like this. We've been given time. I mean, if you go into and look at the example of going to the gym should be the most basic primal example that we have to understand how business works. Because if we go to the gym, we lift, we don't see anything the next day. We don't see anything the day after. We don't see anything the day after that. We don't see anything the day after that, right? On and on and on. But then all of a sudden, one day we look in the mirror and we're like, whoa, man, we're looking pretty good. Or one day you get that miracle and you can bench 300, 400 pounds, right? The gym is a good example of that. But when we're talking about even a greater example, God wants us to work, to give it all, and we can actually choose that time frame. I got a friend of mine who does it in 24-hour time frames where he just goes wild for 24 hours, and he'll do anything to figure it out. Like 24 hours is the time frame he's broke it down into. Now, granted, this guy has about $100 million supplement company between him and his wife. So it took him a while to get down to the 24-hour time frame. So this guy, when he goes out, he puts all of his team on alert. He puts everybody moving in the right direction. He gets everything, puts a full court press on it, and they're going to make it happen within 24 hours. And there's something about it, y'all, when you put that much energy out into the kingdom, that energy is not just going to disappear. It is going to come back. But you've got to get out there and you've got to combine your faith with works because, again, James said faith without works is dead. And once you see that God puts his hand on it and performs a miracle in your life, like he's done for me many times, you're going to have certainty. And then when you get certainty, you're going to be anticipating when you go through that dip or that death valley, you're going to actually start to get excited because you know that you're getting close. You know that God is about to open up and do something incredible in that situation. So anyhow, y'all, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you've been listening to the channel or watching the channel, binge watching, whatever you've been doing here, if this is your first video, please subscribe, please like. I try to drop a video each and every day, and then click that notification bell. So, all right, guys, I appreciate you, and as usual, I'm going to see you on the next one.